The official autopsy on Michael Brown has been released, and some of the details actually go against what witness testimony indicated. Now, I should state that there was also a private autopsy done by the victim's parents, and the autopsies agree with one another, except the one difference is that in the private autopsy, there was no indication that Michael Brown was shot by Darren Wilson at close range. Now, the new official autopsy indicates that he was shot at close range. So let me give you the details. The St. Louis medical examiner, Dr. Michael Graham, who is not part of the official investigation, reviewed the autopsy report for the newspaper. He said Tuesday that it, quote, does support that there was a significant altercation in the car. So remember, that was something that Darren Wilson had said. He said that there was a physical altercation while he was in the police vehicle, and that was what led to him firing his weapon, okay? It supports the fact that this guy is reaching for the gun. If he has gunpowder particulate material on the wound, if he has his hand near the gun when it goes off, he's going for the officer's gun. And that's according to Dr. Judy Melinek. She is the forensic pathologist in San Francisco who reviewed the autopsy.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird thing to say that I don't agree with that, but it's not questioning the medical conclusions at all. Obviously I agree with the medical conclusions. They are what they are, right? I argue with the logical conclusions of that. It does mean they were very close range. There's no question about that. It means that he was near the gun. Okay, these are things that are true. But it doesn't mean that Michael Brown went for the gun initially. That's why Darren Wilson had to pull the gun and then shoot him. That's a big logical leap. It could be that Darren Wilson pulled the gun and then Michael Brown said, "Oh, don't shoot."
Right.
And then got shot in the hand.
I think as a forensic examiner, and I know this sounds insulting because obviously I'm not an expert, right? But as I read this report and as I read them kind of pulling it apart or taking it apart, I'm realizing like, okay, the only thing that the forensic evidence is indicating right now is that Michael Brown's hand was shot at close range. That does not prove that he reached for the gun. That also does not prove that we know exactly what happened in that moment. It could have been that Darren Wilson pulled the gun out, to shoot it, and in that moment of panic, Michael Brown put his hand in front of it or something. You never know how it all went down.
Maybe he reached for it after the cop pulled it.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
I mean, if you think you're about to get shot, what would you do? Okay, but we don't know those things. It could be that Michael Brown reached for the gun. That's also possible.
Absolutely.
So I like that there's evidence in. That's the most important thing. And it is important evidence that they were at close range at the first set of shootings, okay? Now, so that's important. But at the same time, I don't like the way that the media has portrayed it so far. Darren Wilson was right. Obviously, Michael Brown went for the gun. That's not a logical conclusion. It could be, but we don't know for sure.
Right, exactly. So let me give you some more information. According to the newspaper, sources told the Post-Dispatch that Brown's blood had been found on Wilson's gun, which also indicates this is more evidence that he was shot in the hand from close range.
Close range, no question.
Okay.
I mean, if he's 30 feet away, you're not going to get his blood on the gun. That's obvious.
Okay. So Dr. Julie Melinek also said that Brown was facing Wilson when Brown took a shot to the forehead. Now, that was the second time he was shot, okay? And that was the fatal shot. According to the autopsy, after he was shot in the forehead, he died immediately. 2 shots to the chest and a shot to the upper right arm, okay? That was the 6th shot. The wound to the top of Brown's head would indicate he was falling forward or in a lunging position toward the shooter. The shot was instantly fatal.
All right, here's what's driving me crazy. I don't know if you have more clarity on it.
I do, yeah.
Okay, how far is he when they do the second set of shootings? Because in the beginning, he gets shot in the hand, and he's in close range. No dispute over that, right? And so that indicates that there was some sort of tussle. We don't know who started it. We don't know who went for the gun first, but they're in close range, and maybe at that point the cop feels he's under some sort of threat because they're in such close proximity, right? Okay, we understand that part. And then there's a second set of shootings. Do they have a sense of how far he was when that happened?
At that point, it is not indicated in the autopsy report that it was a close range. After he got shot in the hand, there's no indication that the second round of shots happened from a close range. But they're not specific about how far away he is.
So, to me, the whole case rides on that, right? Mm-hmm. So if they have a tussle for the gun, no matter which side you think it is, it's going to be incredibly hard to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the cop that Brown did not reach for the gun, right? And the cop shot him for no reason, right? So, but if it turns out, yeah, they had an original tussle, and he shot Michael Brown through the hand, and then Michael Brown starts to run away. And at that point, he doesn't have the gun because the cop still has it, shot him with it, it's in his hand, right? He clearly was not armed, that's why he might have been reaching for the gun. Mm-hmm. And then he is 10 feet away, 20 feet away, 30 feet away, we don't know, right? Know. And then he shoots him 6 more times or 4 more times or whatever, however many more times,
right,
and kills him. Well, then yes, then that's a significant problem, that's a crime, right? But it's maddeningly unclear.
I just feel as though now we have new evidence, which is good, right? It's important to know that initially he was shot from close range. I just don't like the conclusions that experts are coming to based on this evidence, because this evidence doesn't really imply what they are saying it implies. So let me give you a last piece of this, Cenk. Now, this is the most important part. A 6 shot that hit the forearm traveled from the back of the arm to the inner arm, which means Brown's palms could not have been facing Wilson, as some witnesses have said, and that's according to Melinek. That trajectory shows Brown probably was not taking a standard surrender position with arms above the shoulders and palms out when he was hit. Now, wait a minute, though. You said that the second shot, which was the shot that hit his forehead, right, was the fatal shot. At that point, he was apparently lunging forward, right? He's about to fall over. And the 6th shot, the very last shot, hit him in the forearm. So his position could have changed significantly from a surrender position to him basically falling on the ground because he got a fatal shot to the forehead.
No, Anna's point is fairly devastating, not just because it shows that their conclusion is not right? Because, look, here, think about it conclusively in this sense, right? The fatal shot goes to his forehead. Later, he gets shot in the arm. Well, his hands aren't up anymore because once the fatal shot went into his head, he's already dead. He's in the middle of falling down. So if you're falling down and you get shot in the arm, of course your hands aren't up. You're already dead. So the second part of why that's so important is because they're going to such great lengths to frame it from Darren Wilson's position that I begin to question their objectivity. The whole thing is framed out like, close range part of the shooting. Well, what happened to the other part of the shooting? We won't talk about that. Oh, yeah, his hands weren't up because, he got shot in the back of the arm. Yeah, but at that point, you already said that he got shot in the head. How could he have his hands up in the air when he's already... It drives me crazy.
And look, we're not making any of this up. They said that the shot to the forehead was the fatal shot. He was lunging forward, right, as he continued to get shot more.
And that's the other thing. They're making up the lunging forward. Wait. Do you have scientific evidence that he was at a trajectory that he was close enough that you would conclude that he was lunging forward?
They're claiming yes, they do.
Okay, well, but they don't say how close, because look, if he's really close to the cop, 2 feet away, 5 feet away, and he's lunging forward, okay, that's why his head would be like this. If he's 20 feet from the cop, his head would be like this because he already got shot and he's falling down and he takes a bullet in the head as he's falling. So is it 5 feet or is it 20 feet? That's the whole thing. That's why we got to know. But then they say, I don't know, 5 feet or 20 feet. It doesn't matter. We're going to say he was lunging.
Yeah. Look, here's what the reality is, okay? There was a private autopsy that was done, and it was in favor of Darren Wilson's family and what they're claiming, right? It had no indication that he was shot from a close range. Now there's the official autopsy, which also seems kind of biased. There's going to be a third autopsy done by the Justice Department. That has not been released to the public yet, so we don't know what the details of that will be at the moment, right? But at the same time, I don't like drawing conclusions, definitive conclusions based on the evidence that we have. This evidence, again, is important, but you can't purport to know exactly what happened in that moment based on this evidence.
You know what? Based on this evidence, I don't know if it's the guys who did the original autopsy or the way that the St. Louis Dispatch is reporting it, but it is definitely biased because there's 2 separate sets of shootings, but they never clarify that. They keep talking about he was shot at close range, he was shot at close range, he was shot at close range, right? He was shot at close range in the beginning, but not necessarily at the end. That's an enormous part of the story. If you don't clarify that, it makes it seem like you're trying to cover up for what the cops did, right?
And
it might be that the whole thing was at close range and Darren Wilson's right. That's entirely possible. But then give us that evidence.
Right.
You're not giving us that evidence and you're drawing conclusions on things that are not logical. It makes me suspect.
Yep. So at this point, it's unclear as to whether or not the grand jury will ever indict Darren Wilson, because that's really where we are right now. This investigation will determine whether or not the grand jury will indict him. And based on this autopsy, it makes it seem as though Darren Wilson was telling the truth 100%. And I don't know how it's all going to play out.
Or the way that the autopsy is being reported.
Reported, yeah.
Right. And remember, the earlier autopsy said that that there was some distance between them. That was the big headline from that autopsy when he got shot. So which one is it?